I remember walking down North 7th with you and Stuart. He was a sweet old dog you were watching for one of your friends that week. I have this image of the bright, burnt orange of the evening sun bouncing through the deep blue of the eastern twilight sky. It stretched itself over the glass horizon and slid fingers through concrete cracks placed so perfectly as to catch the lighter hues of brown in the stubble on your face. Your eyes were plenty pretty, but I just watched that sun dance whenever you took them off me and face forward. It was hot, but that sweet old dog still had a lot of life left in him. He needed some exercise before bed, and we could use some too. We had stayed inside all day, smoked some weed, fooled around, ordered in breakfast, and then lunch. The snacks were in the pantry, which was close to full, but we were working toward emptying it again. So we circled the block and walked Stewart up 6th on the way to pick up our tie. We said nothing. It was enough that the sound of our feet over the cracks and dips in the walk chatted gleefully alongside the rest of the city, mingling as bars lit their candles and set out their ashtrays. We didn't need to say anything. We had our steps to fill that space. They joked about the breeze, the TV, the cum we had so ravenously, tenderly produced and shared with one another. Steps swinging in and out of sync, with playful bickering turning into sweet, melting nothings almost embarrassingly soft, back and forth over the old gum, cigarette butts discarded. Those steps eventually slowed and took to lamenting the way the summer felt as it wound down into memory. Goals, fantasies, promises all hung in the air alongside water licked off the Atlantic and her rivers. Most of them we had happily traded for joys unexpected, spontaneities I hold so dearly, though we never meant them to stay with us as memories. Those few months were full of things lost, people lost, leaving space for others to grow closer, then outwards, though never quite fitting the shape that had been left in my chest. I guess it was a summer just like any other summer. To me, though, this one felt special. That heat, that humidity, that hot stickiness that had draped me so thick and held me so strongly. Hot and sticky. The winds had picked up that salt water from the Atlantic and let it hover over the city. Hot and sticky, the way that saltwater sweat poured from those men as we convened in their loft or brownstone or Paramount, your ground floor apartment, the latter so fondly held above the rest. It all surrounded me as Stewart paused to investigate some scent that had caught his attention, and we patiently obliged. There was no rush, no pulling of the leash. He had work to do. Work he desperately needed done to make up for the day or days we had so cavalierly wasted. So, as he inspected the structural integrity of that particular corner of that particular wrought iron fence, we agreed you would go get the food so I could light a cigarette. You hated my cigarettes, but never enough to not taste them from me. This woman walked by, and I'm not sure what I thought when she first passed by us. Maybe just that she would ask me for a smoke. So she and I caught eyes for a second, hers so soft, like those pillows of yours we'd crushed and thrown and held beneath us while we held each other. With kind eyes, she turned to the dog. Oh, look at him. So happy to be out with his dads. And then walked off. You didn't even turn around. It was just a neighborly quip brushed off as you stepped through that restaurant's door. And so I followed your lead, played it cool, and smiled in that dismissive way you do when someone passes you on the street. The door closed behind you, and I was struck. That was the first time I had really thought about that. About us like that, about myself like that. Thought about myself as an adult who'd found another to love, another to fuck, to sleep and wake next to, do the dishes with, to walk your friend's dog that you happened to be watching that week. But then, for a moment, It was our dog, Stuart. We'd picked him out together at that shelter your sister had recommended, remember? It was at her birthday party. I remember we looked online but decided that whatever one struck us in the moment, we would be going home with. You had made some dumb joke. It's like cruising, but I'll actually like the guy I go home with. So I called you a dog fucker for the rest of the day. I remember that morning you had spilled coffee on your new shirt and just had to massage the stain with Dawn and throw it in the wash. So we missed our train by only a few minutes. They didn't come as often on Sundays, so you sat on the bench and I stood over you and pretended to spill my coffee on you, dog fucker. We knew which puppy we wanted almost immediately, but we argued over the name for a bit. We settled on Stuart. He reminded you of your old boss of the same name, and I just thought it was a funny name for a corgi, like an old British man. And then he was ours. We cared for him together, took turns feeding him, had spats about whose turn it was to walk him, and stressed when a dog sitter fell through as we played cards with your parents across the country. We did that for years and years. And so it was. In that moment, he loved you, and I loved you, and he loved me, and you loved me, and we both loved Stuart, just as we had for years. He was so happy to be out with his dads, and I was so happy to be one of his dads. As we both know, and knew, that wasn't to be how it lasted. We both knew we weren't going to be together after August. In fact, we had agreed on it, set it up that way. We were in much different stages of life, different places emotionally and soon to be physically, and we were just too different as people. Nowadays, I mostly think about it as if we were just in love with not being as lonely as we always were, and that's what really built our bond. That we had found each other in moments of weakness and used that infatuation to claw ourselves out of holes we didn't really dig ourselves, though we'd sat in them a while all the same. You were there for me when I needed a place to crash, and I was there to make sure you made your bed, and both of us were there for Luke when he needed a dog sitter to go upstate for his sister's wedding. That's all that was, really. And it's easy to look back on it as more, but I have to remind myself that reality mostly isn't that sweet. I can, however, allow myself to take these moments of candy and mold them into mannequins to set up and photograph or chase down and dance with. I've built a perfect world to live for in my mind, and I'm not sure if you're in it, but that moment definitely is. I don't think I was in love with you at all, actually. And that's perfect. There wasn't anything real to be lost. We'd only made the space to grow into the people we'd wanted to be, the people who deserve what we'd each always wanted, and we'd found that. And found that those wants weren't the same, and in fact, they were often opposed. But for a fleeting moment between you, me, a dog that was neither of ours, and a woman who I'd never see again, everything sang in some sort of out of key harmony. That song still plays for me when I stare at my ceiling or whatever ceiling I happen to be under on any given night. So we grew apart. Daily calls would turn to yearly birthday texts, turn to nothing at all. We'd walk other dogs and do other dishes and take other trains, and in time, the rest of the moments and fucks and meals we shared would become smaller and smaller. But others, with others, more and more, would stick in my mind just as this had, each as illuminating as the last, until I built myself a photo album with who would be you when I met them. And in the end, it wasn't you. but I guess it doesn't have to be you.